Welcome to Trust Talks with BBB Serving CT. I'm Kristen Johnson. In business, Trust Talks and Better Business Bureau's mission is to enhance marketplace trust. In each one of our episodes, we hope to give you a better idea of what to look for, what to look out for, and what to expect so you can spend your money wisely and avoid being scammed. July is Military Consumer Month, so we want to put a special focus on the scams targeting the military community. We're going to share some of the red flags to watch out for and give you some tips on how to avoid these scams. We're also going to give you some advice on donating to military charities as well as some additional resources. And to help us is Connecticut's Commissioner of Veterans Affairs, Brigadier General Ronald Welch. Thank you so much for joining us and taking time out of your busy schedule today. We really appreciate it.
Christine, thank you very much for the invitation today.
So first of all, tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to this position and why protecting military families financially is so important to you.
Sure. So I ended up right out of high school enlisting into the military on a very challenging path to become an Army Airborne Ranger. And I served for just about 40 years, both in peace and war. I was able to attend a lot of schools from the lower level, tactical level, all the way to the strategic level, about 37 of those schools. And became joint qualified towards the end of my service. And I also had about 28 different command and staff assignments, from platoon leader to major command, and served in Afghanistan for a year as a senior advisor and team chief out in the eastern portion of Afghanistan. Upon returning, I served as our Army Chief of Staff for the Connecticut Army National Guard. And prior to retiring, I was the director of our Joint Chief. And after that, I was very fortunate in 2018 to be hired by Eastern SEALs, Capital Region, Eastern Connecticut, and work for Veterans Rally Point, a one-stop shop that provides services and programs to active military, National Guard, reservists, and veterans and family members.
And so let's talk about protecting military families. Why is that so important to you?
You know, they have provided service and sacrifice to our great nation. We need to do everything we can to protect them.
So knowing which businesses military families can trust while they're dealing with all of the challenges of military life can't be easy. What advice do you have?
So to avoid getting scammed, try to shop at, some of the bigger retail stores have pretty good reputations. I would do a little bit of homework if you're going to make a big purchase and see if things are certified by the Better Business Bureau, if the business is certified. Consumer Reports also has a lot of information available to kind of double check and do a little bit of homework. I'd highly recommend that, if you're around a military base or an installation, to shop on those facilities. They do a pretty good job of screening people.
And Better Business Bureau also lets people know when a business is veteran-owned. So if you want to support a veteran-owned business, that's something that you can actually research and look up. I want to put up a graphic. Service members, military spouses, and veterans all reported to BBB Scam Tracker higher median dollar losses to scammers versus non-military consumers. And what's interesting is when you break those three groups out, active duty military spouses, and veterans, active duty military were exposed the least, but they lost the most money, on average $490. That's compared to veterans who lost nearly half that. Why is that? Why are active duty military losing so much money to scams?
It's a complex problem and issue. I'm definitely not a subject matter expert in this area, so I'm only going to speculate. I would say that the spouses do a lot of the shopping on those military installations, and they're protected pretty well. Sometimes once they step off those installations and they make bigger purchases, they may not be as cautious and careful. So they could get stuck if they're buying something like a big truck or something like that. Young service members do, I think, have a tendency to buy some maybe higher, more expensive items. Then maybe the older veteran population might be a little bit more cautious when they're making purchases.
And they're also newer consumers, right? They maybe don't have that education. They haven't been exposed to scams as much. They may not be equipped with what to do
Right.
to prevent them. We also hear that, if you're being shipped overseas, for instance, you don't have the time to do the research that maybe
Right.
you or I would have. And so, research is the best way to protect yourself in those situations. Let's look at another graphic. We find that veterans are exposed to scams much more frequently than military spouses and active duty military, 68% versus just 7% for active duty military. What scams are veterans most commonly targeted with, and what are some of the red flags they should be watching out for?
I think the good news is for the younger veteran population, or younger service member population, that's serving in the military, there's a lot of awareness, security awareness and computer training that helps them, kind of raise their level of awareness a little bit more. The veteran population in Connecticut and many places around the nation is an older population. And we have about 160,000 veterans in Connecticut. It's been reported that 105,000 or more are over 60 years old. In addition, many of them are disabled veterans, and with the recent passing of something called the PAC Act, which expanded a lot of benefits for presumptive illnesses that they may have gotten from things like toxic water or different toxins, Agent Orange, and things like that. So the scammers know that these older veterans are out there and that they probably have some disability income that's out there, and opens them up to a little bit more vulnerability, I think.
So what tips do you have to avoid these scams?
We call it PII, private, personally protected information. Be extremely careful with releasing anything like your social security number, date of birth, even your home addresses, any information related to your bank account or your mortgage. You should really protect that information. And I think if somebody is contacting you and asking you for information versus are you reaching out to them to try to purchase something, that should be a little bit of a red flag if they're coming to you for information. And I think we are vulnerable either in person, by mail, especially by mail, and on the internet. All of us are.
Yeah, those unsolicited emails and text messages, like you said, if you didn't ask for it, you really got to make sure you know where it's coming from and if there's any links where they're going to lead to. Phishing scams in particular, it sounds like they're really trying to get those veterans' personal information, which then can obviously lead to them stealing their money, but first they want to get that personal information out of them. We've done some surveys with our scam tracker report, and what we've found is that online purchase scams, employment scams, those phishing scams like you talked about, and home improvement scams were the top rated scams to BBB scam tracker by military spouses and veterans. So I think with the spouses, often it's maybe they're home alone, they have to make a decision on the like a construction type project at home or something like that. So when it comes to the online purchase scams, of course, we see that across the board. Doesn't matter if you're military or not. Everyone's shopping online these days. So there's a lot of those scams. We want to make sure you do your research, right? Because education is the key to prevention, is it not?
Absolutely.
Especially if it's a company you've never heard of. So you can visit bbb.org, as the commissioner mentioned, read reviews and complaints, as well as see how the business handled those complaints. And then know if you click on a link, if it's in a social media ad, make sure you double check the website it's taking you to. Scammers are great at mimicking official websites by copying logos, so you want to double check the URL. Then with the employment scams, I don't know if you see a lot of this with employment scams, but a lot of people, you come back from your service and now you're looking for a job. A lot of people want those work from home jobs. You got to realize if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
You're right on. That's the key thing. If it sounds too good to be true, it's probably a scam. And it's something I should have mentioned before. Our veteran population that's out there, if you've ever been ill or have a service-connected injury, you want to get with a certified veteran service officer. There are many out there that are trying to scam you to pull you in to say, oh, I'll help you. Just give me a little bit of money. I'll help you submit this claim. We can put this together for you. Make sure it's a certified veteran service officer.
Those are
that files that claim.
those third parties that try to be the go-between, the middleman. And a lot of times with government programs, it doesn't cost you to apply
Right.
for a program, right? Or fill out a form. You can just go on their website and do it yourself for free.
It should be very rare that any veteran would ever need an attorney to file a claim, either for medical coverage, medical benefits, or compensation for service-connected illness or injury.
So if they receive a call like this or an email like this and they're not sure, can they reach out to your
Absolutely.
department?
We're at 5 different locations. We have an office in Norwich, Connecticut. We have one in Newington, Milford, Fairfield, and Waterbury.
Okay.
Please reach out to us. They can also start at the very grassroots level and report that to their local authorities to look into.
Okay. Going back to the employment scams, often, like I said, these come from work from home positions. These offers often require no skills and a huge paycheck. So you definitely want to be careful when filling out employment forms with your personal information, because you don't know whose hands that's going to land in at the end of the day. And then I want to talk about home improvement scams. Again, you want to do your research. Never put down a large deposit for any sort of project. Payments should really be staggered with the pace of work. So I talked about reaching out to the Veterans Department here in Connecticut. Are there any other resources for people who feel like they've lost money or personal information to a scammer?
Yes, absolutely. You can also, our Attorney General has a lot of interest in our veterans being scammed and is very concerned. So there's our Consumer Protection, Office of Consumer Protection, and Connecticut's Attorney General's office.
So DCP, Department of Consumer Protection, and then the Attorney General's office,
Yes.
reach out to them. And we work with them as well. So when we see reports on BBB Scam Tracker, we meet with them and say, okay, we're seeing a lot of this type of scam. You know, they actually have the teeth. You know, we're a nonprofit. They can actually go after the bad guys. And so
Sure.
we share that information. So if you want to go to bbb.org/scam tracker, then you can actually report that to us and we can share that information. I mentioned off the top veterans charities. I know that we see the scams all the time. What are you seeing and what tips do you have for people who want to donate to a veterans charity?
This is a tough one because there are some real professionals out there. The last place of employment I was talking about earlier, Veterans Rally Point, somebody actually replicated our website. And
Wow.
if you looked at it side by side, it would be extremely difficult for you to determine which one was their actual website. Again, going online and taking a look at what kind of comments, what kind of ratings these different charitable organizations have is important. You really need to do your homework because you can get stuck. Even with somebody that's on the side of the road that has the little cardboard sign that says homeless veteran, please donate. You know, we do the best we can to take care of our homeless veterans in Connecticut. Sometimes you will see them and frequently in the same location. And I know local law talks to them to try to, you know, verify their identity and find out if they're legitimate or not. But I think that, you know, the big ones, I don't want to get into naming them, but some of them are really legitimate and they do great work. And other ones are strictly out to take advantage of us that are vulnerable.
And too much of the money might not go to the cause itself, but just to the overhead. And that's why you want to do your research as well. You mentioned the fake website, the copycat website. Scammers are getting so good now. They can copy logos, they can steal pictures, fonts, colors, everything.
Exactly.
So you really want to look at the URL at the top and make sure, you know, it ends with a .org and all the letters are, you know, it spells the right word, the name of the organization, and that sort of thing. BBB has the following tips to consider when making a donation. First, avoid a case of mistaking identity, which is what the commissioner just mentioned. Remember that some group names sound very similar, and they do that on purpose, right? Because they want to trick you. You also want to find out what they do. You want to know how they are going to spend your donation before you give it. And that should be pretty easy to figure out, right? Especially with the internet these days.
Right.
Do your research. Be careful with phone appeals because this was something I didn't realize. Fundraising costs will be higher oftentimes with organizations that do their donation gathering over the phone. So that means less money will go to those who actually need it. I thought that was interesting. Watch out for excessive pressure. Honest charities will accept your donation as much today as they will tomorrow. Right? So if they're not going to give you the time to do your research, that's a red flag. And then ask how the donated items will be used. If you're donating clothing, for instance, a lot of time that's sold at thrift stores. It's not necessarily going to the veterans themselves, correct? They'll sell that to thrift stores, and then they use the money to help veterans. So that's something to know about. And you talked about doing research, because not all charities are alike. BBB actually accredits charities just like it does businesses. And there's 20 different stipulations that they have to meet in order to become accredited. So you can visit give.org, and there you can read about the charities, read how they meet those stipulations and accreditation standards, and then go to their website and learn a little bit about it. Because like you said, there's a lot of good charities out there, but they all do different things.
And sadly, even food pantries that are trying to do a really good thing. A lot of them will have a technique of marking a canned good or their product so it's not resold or taken back to a store in exchange for money.
Oh.
Yeah. That's another area we have to be really careful.
I would have never thought of people doing that. That's really sad.
It is.
And just in general, to think about these men and women who have literally, laid their lives on the line for us, being willing to do that, to sacrifice everything, time away from their families, for them to be taken advantage of after all they've done for our country. I mean, that's just so sad.
Right.
It's so sad that they would be taken advantage of. Let's talk about the Stand Down event.
Okay.
It's something that Better Business Bureau takes part in every year, and I think it's in September. Can you tell people a little bit about it and what you have planned this year?
So we're really excited, and we hope this year is the biggest Connecticut Department of Veterans Affairs stand down in our history. We want to have several thousand attend. We've expanded locations. It's going to be on Friday, the 20th of September. It'll start at 9 o'clock in the morning. It'll run till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And it will be at the following locations: up in Norwich at a place called Veterans Rally Point. That's just down from Dodd baseball stadium. Rocky Hill on our main campus at 287 West Street. That's usually the largest site, where we'll probably have approximately 1,200. In Bristol at St. Gregory the Great Church. Danbury at the Veterans Hall. Bridgeport at the University of Bridgeport, right down close to the water there. And in Stamford at the Yukon campus. The Department of Transportation will establish several hubs, and they will provide free transportation to the event. Some of that will be posted up on our website soon, as far as where those hubs are, where a veteran can get transportation. Many of the providers will be there. There are some nonprofits. There are veteran-friendly organizations doing things like dental screening, free vaccinations for the key things, pneumonia, shingles, flu shots, and hopefully COVID's completely flattened out, so we won't have to do the COVID vaccine. Coats for Vets has already met with us from Ocean State Job Lot, so we'll be providing some winter coats around those locations. There's also medical screening that typically happens, and we will have veteran service officers at every location to talk about the expansion of the PAC Act and how to sign up for medical benefits as well as compensation if they have gotten an injury or an illness during their military service.
So if you're a veteran, you're listening to this, and you've never been before, what do you need to sign up ahead of time? How do you make sure you get there? Can you drive yourself?
There is some sign-ups on our website.
Okay.
And you can drive yourself, or you can take that transportation from one of the transportation hubs. Each one of the sites typically tries to provide a lunch. Nice. So that's always a nice thing. And then, volunteers. We typically will, volunteers will step forward and say, I really want to help out.
That was my next question. If you do want to participate, if you want to be, I don't want to say a vendor, because you're volunteering, you're giving of your time and resources. How do you participate?
So you can go on our website It's www.portal.ct.gov/CTVA.
Okay.
Or you can give us a call at 860-616-3685. That number again is 860-616-3685. And ask for Lindsay, and Lindsay will put you on the list.
Lindsay's a sweetheart. We liked working with her last year. And I got the opportunity to just speak to some of the veterans who were coming through our tent last year. And they're just so grateful and so thankful, which is amazing because we're doing it to thank them for their service. And the thanks comes right back. So it's really it's well worth it to participate and to volunteer if you're out there listening.
We're really happy to support it. And I'd just like to add one thing, the importance for our viewers to emphasize to their elected officials. Every town, all 169 in Connecticut, are supposed to have somebody appointed called a municipal vet representative. And that municipal vet representative doesn't have to be a person that served in the military. They just want to be able, a person that wants to help veterans and service members connect with all the social services we have available in Connecticut. You know, right, starting at the local level. How does a vet get transportation if they need it? Where do they go for food or clothing or employment or housing and healthcare locally? How can they make those connections? So we just had a large training session for about 100 2 weeks ago on Friday on our campus, and we do that every year to get them really smart. Starting again at the kind of the grassroots level, take advantage of social services that are there, and then if they get to the point where they need additional resources, they can come up to our 5 district offices around Connecticut and get that additional expertise.
And this a volunteer position?
It is.
Okay.
Yes.
Very good. Very good.
And I can't emphasize enough, Christine, volunteerism and partnerships. We cannot do this work alone. We deal with the federal VA between Newington and West Haven, those medical facilities every day. We deal with the vet centers, the 4 veteran centers that are in Connecticut, and also the community-based outpatient clinics. There's 8 of those in Connecticut, and they do phenomenal work. They have very caring staff, and they have a lot of really good medical as well as behavioral health expertise.
Very good. Well, before I let you go, I want to also let people know about the Military Line Student Ethics Scholarship. BBB has a military lines, basically where you can go on BBB's website. You could get a lot of the resources we spoke about today, and additional resources for members of the military community, whether you're a veteran, a spouse, an active duty military. You can learn more about scams that are targeting the community in real time. You can also sign up to have someone come from Better Business Bureau to your base or to your organization to speak about this topic. But we also have a scholarship, and this scholarship it's $2,500, and it goes out to either a spouse of someone who's either a veteran or active duty military who's an adult learner in college, or one of their children who's currently a senior in high school or already in college. And so we want to help those out who have a parent or a spouse in the military. So if you go to bbb.org/CT, you can learn more about the scholarship. We just gave the scholarship out. We actually had the winner on the at Yard Goats at the stadium on the field accepting their award, and then being honored on the Jumbotron, and we'll do it again next year. So if you want to go on bbb.org/CT, you can learn about that. We'll start accepting applications in the fall. Before we go, I want to know if there's anything I missed. I know this is a hot topic. We have, as you said, 160,000 veterans, Military Consumer Month. Anything else that you want to share with those out there?
If you feel like you've been scammed, immediately report it, especially to your financial institutions, your banks, and help get the word out. You know, probably starting at the local level is a good thing to do if you're on a local patch or whatever the case may be, or talk to your local authorities, and then go to Better Business Bureau, go to Consumer Protection, but let's help get the word out as soon as we can if you feel like you've been scammed.
I'm glad you brought that up. BBB Scam Tracker, it's anonymous. So your name won't be out there, but your story will be. And you can go on there and you can actually check to see what scams are out there. And the only way we're going to stop the scammers is if we know what's out there, so we can let the authorities know. So that's really important. It's a great place to check. And we also, we know that people sometimes are a little shy to speak up because they feel like they're the only ones. You know, it's a very isolating experience to be scammed. But what you realize is that there's so many others that have been victimized or have survived a scam, and you're not the only one. And so if you go on Scam Tracker, you'll see that. And we have actually, we have some videos and some quotes from people who have survived scams talking about, you know, how they felt when they went through it, and some educational materials there as well. So definitely report it to all of the different agencies that the commissioner mentioned. And thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And for sharing such great tips. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate your time.
And thank you for being with us for Trust Talks. We'll see you next time.
Sometimes life just happens. Don't worry. Farmington Motorsports will get you back on the road and at a fair price. From towing to tires, emissions to transmissions.
Our ASC certified techs do it all.
Farmington Motorsports is a family-run business. We're a Napa Auto Center and AAA approved. We work on all makes and models from preventative maintenance to major repairs.
And every repair is backed by our 2-year, 24,000-mile nationwide warranty.
When life happens to you, don't worry. Farmington Motorsports.
I'm your host, Kurt Barwis. Today, I have a very special guest, Dr. Andrew Lin.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Veterans Corner. My name is Chuck Wooden.
Decision for ourselves for this week, if we want to be made well.
Hi, welcome to the crack of dawn. It's Dawn Lombardi. I'm starting the painting. It's going to be the clips with some water. Love it.
He took me on the sets of Lost in Space, Batman.
Everybody has a story. What's yours? Until next time,